The day my mother slipped into a coma, she whispered just 3 words to me. "I'm not, Mom." I thought I misheard her, but as the machines beeped steadily beside her bed, I felt something. A chill, a crack in everything I believed was true. You see, my entire life, I was her daughter. She raised me, fed me, sang to me when I was scared. But in that moment, everything shifted. And then I found the photograph. It was hidden in a jewelry box I had never seen before. In the picture, there was a baby, a woman I didn't recognize holding her, and my mother, standing in the corner, watching with a strange expression. That was the first thread. I pulled it, and everything unraveled. Aunt Carol broke down after 2 glasses of wine and almost said something she shouldn't have. A stack of hidden letters from the attic told stories that didn't match my childhood. And the DNA test, it said the impossible. We're not even related. How do you process a truth like that, when the person you've loved the most may have stolen you from someone else? And just when I thought I had the answers, I discovered something even more shocking. My real mother didn't give me away. She was looking for me. And someone very close made sure we'd never find each other. What would you do if your entire identity was a lie? If this story already has you wondering what happens next, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Life throws strange, painful, sometimes unbelievable stories our way, and I promise, the ones we share here will leave you speechless. Now, let me take you back to the very first clue I almost ignored. I didn't plan on going through her things, but when the nurse said, "Take whatever you might need," I opened her bedroom door and stepped into a space I thought I knew. Everything smelled like her. Lavender lotion, old wood, warm cotton, sheets. I sat on her bed, our dog's indent still there on the right side, and just let myself cry. I wasn't ready for goodbye. I wasn't ready for silence. Then I saw the box. A small velvet box tucked behind the drawer, wrapped in a yellowing scarf. Not her style. I opened it. Inside was a photograph I had never seen before. It was old, but clear. A woman I didn't recognize holding a baby. And there, just behind her, my mother, looking not happy, not proud, but almost nervous, tense. I stared at it for minutes. The baby, she looked about 6 months old, chubby cheeks, a little freckle by her ear, just like mine. I laughed. At first, I said out loud, "Mom, who's this baby? You had a secret twin stashed away?" The dog barked from the hallway, as if he thought it was funny too. I chuckled, wiped my face, but then something weird happened. I turned the photo over, and there was handwriting. Sarah, 1987. Her first Easter, the year I was born. My name isn't Sarah, it's Emily. Suddenly, the laugh caught in my throat. My hands started shaking. My heart raced in that awful way, like when you realize your car keys aren't in your bag and your flight boards in 10 minutes. This didn't make sense. I pulled out more from the box, a hospital bracelet. It said, "Infant, female, March 29, 1987. Different last name, different mother." That wasn't my name. That wasn't my mother's name. And yet, it was my birthday. I sat on the floor and stared at everything. The bracelet, the photo, the handwriting. And I swear, for a moment, I heard her voice behind me. "Don't dig too deep, Emily." I whipped around. Nothing there. Just the old floor. Creaking. That night, I couldn't sleep. My husband made tea. He's a good man, a retired firefighter with the world's worst jokes. He handed me the mug and said, "Tea for the lady with 20 questions. I smiled weakly. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "Whatever this is, you'll find the truth. You always do." But did I want the truth? The next morning, I visited Aunt Carol. She's my mom's younger sister, sharp tongue, big heart, and 2 cats named Elvis and Priscilla. Carol opened the door in a robe covered with daisies and said, "If you woke me up to tell me I won the lottery, it better not be a joke this time. Can I ask you something serious?" I said. She blinked. "I haven't had coffee yet, but go ahead." I pulled out the photo. Her entire face changed. Color drained from her cheeks. She sat down. One cat leapt off her lap like it knew trouble was coming. "Where did you get that?" she asked softly. "Mom's drawer," I said. "Who's the woman holding the baby?" She looked down, then up, then down again. "Carol?" She took a deep breath and said, "I can't tell you." I promised her I'd never say a word. Promised who? Emily. Her eyes filled with tears. "It's not my place." I had never seen my aunt cry. She was the type who joked at funerals and played cards at hospitals. But in that moment, she looked like a child who had kept a terrible secret too long, and that scared me more than the photo. Back home, I sat in the kitchen and looked out the window. A little girl rode by on her pink bike, streamers flying, hair in a braid. I remembered when Mom taught me to ride. She ran behind me, yelling, "Don't look back. You've got this." And when I fell and scraped my knee, she cried harder than I did. Was that fake? Was it all fake? And yet, my heart said, no. My heart remembered the lullabies, the soft hands, the night she stayed up with me when I had chicken pox, watching reruns of I Love Lucy until we both passed out. Maybe there was love. Maybe there was a lie. But those two things didn't cancel each other out. Still, I needed answers. I wasn't Sarah, but I wasn't sure if I was Emily either. The attic had always been her space, not mine. It was filled with sewing patterns, old board games, Christmas ornaments from the 90s, and a trunk that smelled like mothballs and mystery. I hadn't been up there in years, maybe since college. But something in me said, look there. So I climbed up the narrow stairs, flashlight in hand, trying not to inhale too much dust or step on a squirrel. Yes, once, in 2004, we had a squirrel up here. Mom named him Stanley. She was weirdly proud of that. The air was heavy, not just from dust, but from time, from memory. I opened a few boxes, high school trophies, an old prom dress I didn't even remember keeping, a VHS tape labeled Emily's 5th birthday. I smiled a little. Then I found it, a small showbox, wrapped in what looked like a kitchen towel. Inside were letters. So many letters. They were yellowed, folded tight, tied with ribbon like they'd been loved once, then hidden away in guilt. The first was dated 1988, 1 year after I was born. Dear Margaret, please, just tell me if she's okay. I don't need to see her. I just need to know she's safe. I froze. Margaret was my mother's name. The handwriting was delicate, careful, like someone afraid of being misunderstood. Each letter was signed, Claire. I didn't know a Claire. Or, I didn't think I did. I opened another one. Dear Margaret, I heard from someone at the hospital that she was adopted. You told me this would be temporary. You said I'd get her back. She's mine. Please, don't do this. She has a birthmark behind her ear, like I do. You said it meant something. My fingers trembled. The room started spinning just a little. I turned on the little attic lamp, sat cross-legged in the dust, read every letter. There were 23 of them, each more heartbreaking than the last, each one a plea, each one asking for a child. Me. Claire wrote about a stuffed giraffe named Benny. She wrote about singing lullabies through the hospital glass. She wrote about regret and hope and a sister. Wait, a sister? I reread that line 3 times. You said you'd take care of them both, but I've only seen pictures of one. What happened to the other baby? I gasped. Was there another child? Did I have a twin? Suddenly, something made a sound, a creak. I looked up, half expecting Mom to be standing at the top of the stairs, scolding me for snooping. But it was just the wind. I exhaled, barely. That night, I called Aunt Carol again. Carol, who's Claire? Silence. Then, where did you hear that name? I hesitated, then told her about the letters. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She sighed, a long, low, heavy sigh that made my skin crawl. She was your mother's best friend. My stomach flipped. She worked at the same hospital. They were close, closer than sisters. What happened to her? Another pause. She disappeared. Disappeared? No one's heard from her in almost 30 years. Was she my birth mother? More silence. Then Carol said something I'll never forget. Emily, some truths don't set you free. They just break your heart quieter. I didn't sleep that night. I made tea, walked around the house barefoot, reread the letters over and over. One said, Dear Margaret, if she asks about me one day, tell her. I never gave up. Not for a second. Even when the world said I should. Love always. Claire, that one got me. I sat on the kitchen floor, hugged my knees, and cried. Not loud. Not angry. Just the kind of crying where you feel like you're folding in on yourself, because someone out there had loved me deeply. And I never even knew her name until today. And someone else, the woman I called Mom, had kept that love from me for decades. The next morning, I told my husband. He stared at me wide-eyed, then said, Wait, does this mean you might have a twin out there somewhere? I looked up, still wiping my eyes, and said, only if she likes tea and terrible jokes. He smiled. Well then, you better hope she's the quiet one. We don't need two of you. I laughed, and it felt good to laugh, even for a moment, even when nothing made sense. But now I needed more than letters. I needed truth, and I had a way to get it. I would take a DNA test. I didn't plan to go back to Carol's so soon, but after the letters, I couldn't stop thinking about that name, Claire. I needed more, and I had a feeling Carol knew more than she let on. So I showed up on her porch with 2 coffees, a cinnamon roll, and a slightly forced smile. She opened the door in the same daisy-covered robe, holding a garden gnome under one arm. Don't ask, she muttered, motioning me in. It's a long story involving raccoons and regret. I grinned despite myself. Only Aunt Carol could make a breakdown feel like a sitcom. We sat at her tiny kitchen table, the one with mismatched chairs and a cracked salt shaker shaped like Elvis. Yes, she collects Elvis. No, I don't ask why anymore. I placed the photo on the table. She didn't touch it. Then I laid out the letters. She froze, and then something inside her just snapped. She stood up so fast the chair screeched, walked over to the sink, gripped it like it was the only thing keeping her standing. I told her, she whispered. I told her this would come back. I told her secrets rot from the inside. She turned around, her eyes wet and wild. She wasn't a bad person, Emily, but she was scared. And when people are scared, they do stupid, selfish things. Who? I asked gently. Claire or Mom? She laughed bitterly. Both. She sat back down, her hands trembling. I was there. The day you were born. I was in the waiting room. I remember it like it was yesterday. She didn't even hold you at first. Claire did. Claire held you like you were made of glass and stars. My heart ached. I tried to imagine it. A woman I never knew, holding me before I even had a name. She cried, Carol said softly. Claire cried so hard, I thought she'd break. Why? Didn't she keep me? I asked. Carol looked at me for a long time. She tried. God, she tried. But something happened. Something I was never supposed to know. She stood again, started pacing. She left the hospital and never came back. No one could find her. They said maybe postpartum depression, or maybe something worse. Worse? I echoed. Carol nodded. There were rumors that she was taken, or that Margaret made her leave. My blood ran cold. Made her leave. How? Carol froze, then whispered. Your mother was a nurse. She knew people. She had access. She wanted a baby. A long silence. You're saying she stole me? Carol flinched. I'm saying. I think she bent the truth so hard, it snapped. And once it did, she couldn't undo it. So she buried it. Buried Claire. Buried everything. She sat back down, breathing heavy, then reached into a drawer and pulled out a bottle of whiskey. It was 10:15 a.m. Aunt Carol? She poured a shot, downed it, and said, Don't judge me. If you'd held this for 30 years, you'd need backup too. I almost laughed. Almost. Do you know if I had a sibling? I asked. Carol hesitated. I don't know. Maybe. There was talk of twins, but then only one baby ever came home. Why didn't anyone tell me? I whispered. She looked at me with tired eyes. Because we didn't want to lose you. And deep down, I think your mom always feared that day would come. Then, just as I was about to ask more, the phone rang. Carol looked at the caller ID, frowned. It's the hospital. She answered. Hello? Yes. This is her sister. What? When? She went pale. My stomach dropped. She hung up. Emily, she said slowly. It's your mother. What about her? She's awake. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Everything. I wanted answers. Truth. Confrontation was suddenly real. My mom Margaret was awake, and I had questions only she could answer. In the car, Carol sat beside me, clutching her purse like it might run away. She muttered, Maybe don't lead with the whole you stole me thing. I managed a weak smile, noted, but in that moment, driving toward the hospital, I didn't feel brave. I felt like a child again. The one who used to crawl into bed with mom after nightmares. The one who believed her mom could fix anything. Only now, I wasn't sure who she really was, and I wasn't sure if she ever could fix this. I didn't tell her right away. I sat by her hospital bed, watching her breathe, trying to match my inhale with hers like I used to as a child, when I thought breathing in sync would keep her alive forever. She looked smaller now, softer, as if the truth had taken something from her too. When her eyes fluttered open, I stood, "Hey, Mom." She smiled, weakly, and then she whispered, "I didn't think I'd see you again." I held her hand. "Neither did I." We didn't talk about the photo, or the letters, or Claire. Not yet. She was too weak, but in the quiet of her sleep, I opened my phone and clicked order DNA kit. Simple swab. Simple wait. But nothing felt simple anymore. A week passed. I stayed by her side. Read her the paper. Painted her nails her favorite color blush rose. Even brought her the worst hospital coffee and told her it was just like Paris. She rolled her eyes, smiled. Paris was never that bitter. We had moments. Real ones. But the question kept pounding at the back of my mind. Was any of this real? Then the email came. Your DNA results are ready. My hands trembled as I opened it. And there it was, under parental match. No relation found. None. Zero. Not low match. Not possible relative. Just no. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. There it was, cold, clean, and cruel. Science didn't care about lullabies, or birthday cakes, or nights spent in the air holding hands. Science said, she's not your mother. I dropped the phone. It hit the kitchen floor with a dull thud. My husband walked in, saw my face, and didn't say a word. Just wrapped his arms around me. I sobbed into his shirt. Not the loud kind. Not the dramatic kind. The kind where your chest just gives out, where something inside you collapses and you don't even have the strength to scream. Later that night, I sat on the couch, clutching a cup of tea I didn't drink, and I thought about something she once said to me when I was 10. "You're my miracle," she said, brushing hair from my eyes. "I prayed for you every night." Was that true? Did she pray for me, or take me? It's strange. You can lose someone who's still alive. You can grieve someone who's right in front of you, because in that moment, I didn't just lose my mother. I lost the story of who I thought I was. I went back to the hospital the next day. She was stronger, sitting up, reading a romance novel. Like nothing had changed. I sat beside her, opened my mouth, closed it. She looked at me, smiled gently. "You know, don't you?" I nodded. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Why?" I asked. "For loving me, or for lying to me?" Her eyes welled up. "For both." I didn't say anything. Not for a long time. She reached for my hand. "I didn't steal you," she said softly. "But I didn't try hard enough to give you back either." We sat in silence, the monitor ticking softly beside her. Finally, I stood. "I need time." "I know," she whispered. "Take all the time you need." And as I walked out, she called after me. "I did love you. Every day. In every way I knew how." In the parking lot, I sat in the car, tears pooling in my lap. Everything had changed, but I was still here, still breathing, still searching. You know, I never thought I'd take a DNA test. But sometimes the answers we fear most are the ones we need to finally move forward. If you've ever felt lost, like your story has missing chapters, you're not alone. And if you want to hear how this story ends, and the one still unfolding, feel free to subscribe to this channel, so you can always come back to the stories that remind you you're not the only one. Now I had a name, Claire, and I had a test that said she might still be out there, somewhere, waiting. Her name was Claire Monroe. According to the DNA site, we shared 49.8% of our genetic material. That was close enough to scream, "This is your mother." I stared at the name on the screen for hours. I searched Facebook, Google, old property records, and there she was, living just 2 hours away, in a quiet town by the coast. She worked at a florist, had silver hair pulled back in a soft bun, and from the photos I found, she smiled the same way I did. That smile stopped me cold. The drive to her town felt longer than it should have. I rehearsed everything I wanted to say. "Hi. I think I'm your daughter. I've been looking for you. I think you've been looking for me too." None of it felt right. I walked into the flower shop at 2:07 p.m. She was trimming white roses behind the counter. I stood there, frozen. She looked up and smiled politely. "Can I help you, dear?" Her voice, it was soft, warm, but it didn't recognize me. I stepped forward. "My name is Anna." She paused, confused. I think you might be my birth mother." The scissors slipped from her hand. She didn't say a word, just stared. Then she slowly shook her head. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You must be mistaken." I told her about the DNA test, the photo, the letters, the hospital, the woman I thought was my mother, lying in a bed hooked to wires, and regrets. Still, she shook her head. "I had a daughter," she said quietly. "But she died." The room spun. No, I said. That was me. That's what they told you. But it wasn't true. She walked to the back of the shop. I followed. She stood by a small framed picture on the wall. A baby, wrapped in pink. I buried her, she said. She only lived 2 days. But I'm here. She turned to me. Then who are you? I left without answers. I sat in my car outside the shop for nearly an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat, feeling more orphaned than ever before. A week passed. Then came the letter, from Claire, written in soft blue ink on thick paper that smelled faintly of lilies. It said, Anna, I lied. The moment I saw your eyes, I knew. But I didn't know how to be your mother again. Not after what they did. I was told you died. For 34 years. I believed that. Please forgive me. Please let me try. I held the letter to my chest and sobbed. The kind of sob you save for moments your heart has waited a lifetime for. We met again. At a small diner by the water. She brought old photos, baby shoes, the hospital bracelet with my name and a Claire Monroe. She cried as she placed it in my hand. I named you after me, she said. Anna Claire. We talked for hours about the past, the loss, the lie, and then she told me the twist that broke everything open. I think someone took you, she said. But it wasn't a stranger. It was someone in the hospital, someone who knew me. That was when it hit me. Carol, Aunt Carol, who worked as a nurse, who always said she stepped in when no one else would, who drank too much and almost confessed something that night. It wasn't just fate. It was orchestrated. Someone stole me from Claire and placed me in another woman's arms. You never imagine your life is a novel someone else wrote the first chapter of, but here I was, living in someone else's rewrite. Now I had another name, another person to confront, and maybe one final truth to uncover. I returned to Aunt Carol's house with a new mission. No more guessing. No more tears, just truth. She opened the door slowly, as if she already knew what I was coming for. Anna, she said with that tired smile. You look like you've seen a ghost. No, I said quietly. I think I was one, for 34 years. She didn't invite me in, but I stepped inside anyway. The house smelled the same, lavender and old wood, same carpet, same family portraits, except none of them had me in them. You need to tell me, I said, everything, from the beginning. Carol sat down slowly in her rocking chair, hands folded in her lap. She stared at them like they held a confession. You were never supposed to know, she finally whispered, but you always deserved to. She told me the truth in pieces, like she was unraveling a sweater thread by thread. The day I was born, she was on shift in the maternity ward. Claire had given birth unexpectedly early. There were complications. Doctors focused on saving Claire, and for a moment, the newborn me was left alone. Carol was there, and she made a choice. She looked just like my sister, Carol said, her voice cracking. She was my sister. I snapped. She looked up, tears in her eyes. Claire never wanted a child. She was 19, alone, broke. I heard her talking about adoption. I stared at her, stunned. That's not your decision to make. I didn't take you out of cruelty, she said. I took you because I thought I was saving you. She had falsified records, used a friend inside the system, paid cash, filed for adoption under a fabricated name, Margaret and Monroe, mother unknown, transferred to foster custody, then adopted by a woman named Deborah Green, my mother. It was a full-blown illegal adoption, covered up with fake papers, hush money, and time. I thought I was giving you a chance, Carol whispered. You gave me a lie, I said. A life based on stolen identity. She handed me a dusty file folder from a locked cabinet in the hall. Inside, a birth certificate with the wrong name, a blurry, black and white photo of Claire, sedated in a hospital bed, and a handwritten note. Transfer complete, file closed, no further contact. My stomach turned. I loved you like my own, Carol said, but I wasn't yours. Silence. Then I asked the question I had been dreading. Did Mom know? She nodded. She found out when you were 12. She stayed silent. She thought it would break you. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. She let me love her like a daughter. She loved you like one, Carol said. I stood up, shaking, furious, broken. But then, out of nowhere, Carol said something that froze me in place. There's someone else you need to talk to. Someone who helped make this happen. Who? She looked me dead in the eye. Your father. My breath caught. What father? I never had one. She didn't blink. You do. He's alive, And he knew. He helped pay for it. That moment felt like stepping off a cliff. Everything I had ever believed about family, about love, about who I was came undone. As I drove away from Carol's house, the sun began to set behind the trees, but it didn't feel peaceful. It felt like the end of something and the beginning of a fire. I pulled over, sat on the side of the road, and for the first time in days, I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because it was all so absurd. Then I cried, not soft, poetic tears, but the kind that shake your whole body, that taste like rage and grief and betrayal. I had a father out there, a man who bought me, and I was going to find him. I found him in Florida, not in some hidden shack, but in a beach house overlooking the ocean. Curtains billowed from French doors. He was watering orchids on the porch. He looked peaceful, ordinary, like someone who'd never done anything wrong. Mr. Monroe? I asked. He turned around, his eyes locked on mine. Something flickered there, recognition, maybe, or guilt. You're Claire's daughter, he said before I could speak. So he knew. Why? I asked. Why would you pay to take me away from her? He sighed. Not the kind of sigh you make when you're cornered, but the kind you make when you're tired of hiding. Because I loved your mother, he said. I blinked. My real mother? Yes, Claire. She was scared, he continued. Broke, pregnant, 19. I offered to help, but she didn't want my name on the birth certificate, said it'd make things more complicated. So you helped Carol take me? I asked. He hesitated. I gave Carol the money. I didn't know the details. I thought she'd arranged something official. You thought stealing a baby was official? He winced. I thought I was saving you both. It was the same lie. Everyone telling themselves they were saving me, but they were really saving themselves from guilt, from shame, from inconvenience. He walked to a drawer and handed me a box. Inside were photographs. Claire, holding me as a baby. Notes. A tiny gold bracelet engraved with Anna. She left it with me, in case you ever came looking. I held the bracelet. It weighed less than a feather, but it crushed me. I spent my whole life loving people who lied to me, I said. He nodded, but said nothing, and then he dropped the second bomb. Deborah knew too. I froze. What? Your mom? She knew from the start. She was the one who called me when you got sick at 3 months old. She asked for help. I stared at him. She called you? But she told me she didn't know who my father was. She lied to protect you, or maybe to protect herself. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mother Deborah was dead now, but the lies kept breathing. Claire, my birth mom, had been silenced. Carol, my aunt, had engineered the switch. My dad had funded it. And Deborah, the woman I cried for when I scraped my knees, held me through every heartbreak. She knew everything. I sat at the hotel desk and wrote a list of names. Carol, Deborah, Monroe, even Claire. Everyone I had loved had lied. I almost wanted to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was insane. At this point, the only person who hadn't betrayed me was the stranger in the mirror. The next morning, I went to a diner and ordered pancakes. The waitress gave me extra syrup without asking. Rough morning, sweetheart? She asked. You have no idea, I said with a half smile. She poured my coffee, leaned in, and said, Honey, if you're not crying in a Waffle House at are you even American? I actually laughed. For real this time. Sometimes the universe gives you a break in the form of a waitress with too much lipstick and no filter. Later that day, I sat on the beach, the bracelet still on my wrist, wind in my hair, salt in the air, and I recorded this part of the story for you. For anyone who's ever felt like their life was built on secrets. I used to think betrayal was about people turning their backs, but the worst betrayal is when they look you in the eyes and still lie. But I wasn't done, because there was one more person I needed to face. Claire, the woman who gave birth to me, the woman I'd never dared to forgive. She opened the door slowly. Claire, my birth mother, older now, gray streaks in her auburn hair, wrinkles around her eyes, but still familiar, like a face I had seen in dreams I forgot upon waking. I wondered when you'd come, she whispered. We stood in silence, two women connected by blood, separated by everything else. I don't know what to say, I admitted. She looked down. I've imagined this moment 1,000 times, and I still don't have the right words. We sat in her kitchen. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. There was a picture of me, a school photo aged and worn, clipped to the fridge with a magnet. She had kept it all these years. I tried to find you, she said. They told me you died. I blinked. What? After I gave birth, they said, you didn't make it. I held you once. Then they took you. She broke. Right there in front of me, shoulders shaking, hands trembling. I was 19. I had no one, but I would have fought if I had known. My throat tightened. Everything I thought I knew shattered again. Claire hadn't given me up. They stole me from her and told her I was dead. I reached into my bag and took out the bracelet, placed it on the table between us. She gasped. Anna, her voice cracked. I gave that to the nurse. I didn't think I'd ever see it again. I wore it every day after I found it. I said quietly, it's like a part of me always remembered you. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't know if I can, I replied, but maybe. I don't need to punish you either. I left her house with a strange calm in my chest, like the storm had passed. But I knew it wasn't over. There was one last thing I had to do. To the cemetery. I knelt by Deborah's grave, the woman who raised me, the woman who lied, the woman who loved me anyway. I don't know if you were my mother, I whispered, but you were there for every scraped knee and broken heart. I placed flowers beside her stone. Maybe it wasn't just a lie. Maybe you needed me as much as I needed you. The wind blew gently. I almost imagined her voice again, singing softly, like she used to when I was sick. Then I made my final decision. I took every document, every letter, every proof of what happened to me, and I mailed it to a lawyer. Not to sue, not to shame, but to make sure it never happened to another child again. I could have chosen revenge, but I chose to rewrite the story. A week later, I stood in front of a classroom. Middle school kids, fidgety, loud, hopeful. Do you know your mom's favorite song? I asked. They giggled. Some shouted answers. One little girl said, mine likes Johnny Cash. I smiled. Well, hold on to that song, because sometimes, that's all you have. That day, I told my story, not the version with courtrooms and lawyers, but the one about truth and love and choices. I told them, you are more than what people hide from you. I didn't get revenge. I got something harder. I got peace. As someone who's spent years studying the power of true stories, I can tell you this, the ones that stay with us are never just about what happened. They're about what it meant. This story wasn't just about a stolen identity or a hidden past. It was about love in its most complicated form. It was about choices and the courage to choose peace when revenge is so much easier. We don't all get the answers we want, but sometimes healing doesn't come from truth alone. It comes from what we choose to do after we learn it. I wonder what you would have done. Would you have forgiven Deborah? Or exposed her? Would you have embraced Claire? Or walked away? I'd truly love to hear your thoughts. Scroll down and share in the comments. Your story, your truth, it might just help someone else find theirs. And if you found even a moment of meaning in this story, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Not just so you won't miss the next story, but so you'll always have a place to come back to when life feels heavy and you just need to feel seen. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, sometimes the story we think is ours was never really ours to begin with.